Shadow work is the exploration of lost or hidden parts of yourself. So if you've ever felt like part of you is missing or repressed, shadow work can be really helpful to help you recover what is lost. Everyone has a shadow, and it can be expressed as repeating the same mistakes over and over again without explanation, outbursts of emotion which you feel are not characteristic of your true personality, any out of character behavior. So if you behave in a certain way and then a bit later upon reflection you feel confused about why you behaved like that and it seems out of character. Projections, so that is when parts of you are disowned and attributed to somebody else. These can be attributes you don't like about yourself or attributes you've learned to suppress. They can be both positive or negative, and I say that loosely because labeling something as positive or negative is a judgment, which isn't always helpful in shadow work. It's useful to accept everything as it is without judgment. But yeah, an example of a projection would be if you're somebody that finds it really helpful to help other people, if you're always encouraging other people to achieve their goals, but somehow you're not able to achieve your own, that could be because you're repressing those parts of yourself which would enable you to achieve success, and you're attributing them to other people, and it's helping them to be successful, but you yourself are not giving yourself that time and attention to achieve your own goals. An example where outbursts of emotion can come into play would be, for example, if somebody believes themselves not to be an angry person, so they can go about their usual day-to-day life not being angry and being calm, but when they're at home occasionally or often they have outbursts of anger. This is because that angry part of themselves is not accepted, it's being suppressed, and it just comes out maybe at times of relaxation or times when it feels safe to do so. But for this type of scenario, the person needs to acknowledge that they do experience anger and that anger is a healthy emotion in order to integrate that into their daily life. I've heard it said that home is where you're treated the best and behave the worst. And I think, although that may not always be true, it does apply to this scenario that I've just run through. So one key in shadow work which is helpful is to separate the behavior from the person. Don't identify with the behavior. Often behavior is learned through our upbringing, through social conditioning. So the behavior is not the person. The person underneath that behavior is the true reflection of who they are. But a lot of behaviors are learned. Other terms which might be used rather than shadow work are soul retrieval, which is used in shamanic circles. This is literally where the belief is that parts of the soul have become split off or lost through, again, adverse life experiences, through trauma, through social conditioning. Could also be attributed to past lives or ancestral trauma. So ancestral trauma is a trauma that runs through the family line. So if there is a history in your family, for example, of being mistreated due to your nationality or due to some attribute of the family, this can display itself as ancestral trauma. You may also hear the term integration used. I'm probably going to use it quite a lot because it's really, really important. So integration is the process of accepting all those lost parts back and incorporating them into your personality. So in the example I gave of the person who's denied that they are angry, they then need to learn how to process their anger in a healthy way rather than allowing it to burst out at inappropriate times or at times when they feel safe. So the key would be to recognize the anger at the moment that it comes up and be able to work with that, express it, name it, and process it at the appropriate time, not waiting or leaving it unexpressed until a later time. Shadow work should lead to increased empathy and understanding of others as well as yourself. If you're able to successfully integrate these lost parts of yourself, there are often really powerful, really wonderful personality traits, gifts, talents, all of which have been pressed down and not expressed through life. So shadow work should enable you to reclaim those gifts and talents and express them in a healthy and safe way. Shadow work can increase creativity. Again, that's something that often becomes suppressed because maybe at school you did an art class and were told that your art wasn't good, or maybe you didn't achieve a very high grade. But this is where we're measured at school by certain standards and certain criteria. But that's a very restricted view on things. So that doesn't mean you're not creative. It doesn't mean that you're not good at art. Everyone is an artist in their own way. It may be that you have a different form of creativity. Maybe you're great at poetry. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you're a dancer. Maybe you just have a creative way of organizing things or of coming up with solutions. So creativity isn't something that should be labeled in a certain way or put into a box or a classroom activity. It is a very natural part of being human, but maybe we're not trained to express our creativity in a useful or helpful way. Shadow work can help you break a cycle of self-sabotage. So if you find yourself getting in the way, maybe you see an opportunity in life, but you haven't taken it, and then you feel confused at the end. Why? You had this great opportunity, but you didn't take it for some reason. You procrastinated, or you avoided turning up to an interview, or something happened along the way that meant that you couldn't take up this opportunity, you didn't take the risk. That is self-sabotage. And there is a part of self called the internal saboteur, who can be a great blocker to our success. But once we get a handle on that, and once we understand it and understand how the internal saboteur is actually working for us, we can turn that around and turn it into something that helps us to be successful. So this is a topic I'm going to focus on this week, shadow work. We're going to be diving into the topic and exploring it from different angles to understand what it is and how it can be applied, and hopefully have some breakthroughs and some insights into how it's helpful. So I'll just end with a reflection. Ask yourself, what part of me has been hiding? And just go with whatever comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind, don't give it too much thought, because again, that can be conditioning, which tells us to think things through. Just come with the first thought, feeling, image, whatever it is that comes up for you. That is the thing that you need to work on. So just hold that in your thoughts and have a think. What might be hiding? What might be repressing it? And how might you work with that? And we're going to talk about this more this week. So we'll pick up again tomorrow.